All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, where we will be talking about the new collaboration stack, which includes Microsoft Teams, Copilot, and the Agentic AI. Before we get started, I just want to set the stage here, the main crux about this session today. As we all know, the information overload is real. Everybody is spending too many hours in the day in meetings, on emails, responding to chat messages, meeting follow-ups, things like that. And there is very significant effort saving, cost saving, labor saving when we put all these tools to work together the way it is supposed to be. So that's going to be the main session, the crux of today's webinar. So without any further delay, let's get into it. This is the agenda for today's webinar. We're going to do a quick introduction. I've got Mike here with me today. Then we're going to talk about what this really truly means, right? When we combine these three powerful tools, what does that look like? Then we're going to talk about Copilot architecture, how this works behind the scenes, some of the building blocks that fuels the Copilot architecture overall, and then how Copilot functions in teams. We're going to walk through some use cases here, which I hope some of you are already using it. If not, it'll be a good exposure to what Copilot can do in your day-to-day lives working with Microsoft Teams. Then we're going to look at a couple of screenshots and use cases on Copilot Places. So if you don't know Places, that's a newer, it's actually not that new. It's been out for a year. It's a hybrid workplace tooling supposed to enhance, improve workplace collaboration. Then we are going to look at Agentic AI. What is it and why it matters? And then to conclude this, we're going to look at a real world story that Mike's going to talk about. And then we're going to end this session. So pretty action-packed agenda for today's webinar. So let's get into it. Just a quick introduction. My name is Satyendra Sharma. I am one of the field CTOs here at Netrix, focused on digital workplace technologies, which is Microsoft Teams primarily. It also includes voice, UCaaS, CCaaS, meeting spaces, digital signage, and all the collaboration-specific tooling. I'm joined here with my friend Mike Luttenberger. Mike, if you want to say a quick hello.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Mike Luttenberger, also in the field CTO team. I cover all things AI, so excited to get into it today.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. So let's take a look at what this Teams Copilot and Agentic AI altogether looks like. And then to depict it, we have this little diagram. So Microsoft Teams, hopefully everybody's familiar with Microsoft Teams. It is the collaboration hub. Think of it like your digital office. This is where the work happens. This is where you spend most of your day, chats, calls, meeting, files, applications, co-authoring. It is basically your collaboration hub, right? It's almost like the cockpit of your airplane, right? This is the main day-to-day, which is where you spend most of your time. Then we have Copilot Intelligence Assistant. Copilot Intelligent Assistant is like your colleague that works alongside with you in a digital assistant capacity, that is reading every document that you're working on, is attending every meeting with you that you attend or not attend. If you skip something, it can join on behalf and give you summarization, things like that. It helps you draft email replies, summarize emails, find documents, create content. That's the Copilot Agent Assist for you. And the bottom, we have the Agentic AI. So Agentic AI is the overarching sibling of these tooling that puts everything together. It doesn't really need any command. It doesn't need to be asked to do something. This is something that can get triggered on certain events and then executes across all applications that you're working on, including chat, email, calendar, OneDrive, and then get the task done that it's designed for. So it's a autonomous agent type workload that is connected to all your Office 365 apps and gets that task done on certain trigger points. So altogether, this is what's fueling the whole efficiency of Copilot and getting the task done, summarization, and then increasing the productivity with the least amount of time from a day-to-day information worker perspective. Here are some quick stats. So as I said earlier, there is an information overload happening, right? Productivity crisis is real. There is about 57% knowledge worker spend on communication. We spend so much time on meetings and responding to emails and chat. The actual time to do the deliverable work or checking things off your to-do list, that's getting smaller and smaller. 68% of employees say they don't have enough time, uninterrupted time. You're getting ping, you're getting email. There's, the deep focus time to do the work is also getting smaller. 2.5 hour saved per user. So now we are talking about some savings, how a Copilot powered workplace can save time for users, right? Whether it's being quickly summarize a meeting that you are in so you don't have to spend time, go through everything, write minutes of the meeting, things like that, drafting email, going through your inbox, stuff like that. So there is huge amounts of saving. 2.5 hours per week times the number of employees you have across the whole company. That's a big number. Over 90% of the Fortune 500 companies are already harnessing the power of Copilot. So it's already being valued, it's already being deployed, and it is being used in the real world. So with that, now we know kind of how this works together. Now we're going to talk about what is Copilot. And then for that, I will pass over to Mike to kind of talk through this.
Great, thanks, Sat. All right, so a lot going on here in this diagram. Let's kind of talk about some of this stuff right now. So again, let's kind of take a step back and talk about first kind of what is Copilot, right? It's an LLM. What's an LLM? Let's take another step back. Really what it is a system that was trained on all sorts of text data, right? Of Wikipedia articles, books, you name it, right? It's trained on that information on there. But there's also another component to AI, which is the semantic index. And how I liken to say that is, again, let's kind of use SharePoint as the example today. SharePoint today is using keyword searches, right? Very much like Google or Bing when you're doing an internet search, right? There's a few keywords you want to throw in, and then it finds said thing. An example would be, let's say you have a 401k document in your SharePoint environment. If you're using traditional keyword searching in SharePoint, somewhere in that document, whether it's in the document, the name of the document, or if you have any type of metadata tagging on that document, has to have the word, let's say, benefits, right? And if you go into SharePoint and that document doesn't have any of those things, doesn't have the word benefits in it, doesn't tagged with it, isn't in the title or anything, and you type in benefits, most likely that document won't show up because it's looking for keywords like traditional search. Where the semantic index comes in is it's what I would consider like it's understanding what you're asking, right? It understands the context of what you're asking, not just keywords. So now let's talk about AI in that same scenario. Now, if I go looking for that same document using AI, it's context aware of what I'm asking. So even though it's not tagged with benefits, the word benefits is nowhere in there, it understands when I say benefits that 401k is a benefit. So it will supply that to me. So that's kind of the semantic index. And then the thing that makes Copilot is the Microsoft graph. What is the graph? It is all the things that are personal to you, right? Everybody that is on this call has a different graph. It's your emails, it's the meetings on your calendar, it is documents you've created, documents that have been shared with you, right? Kind of that personalization of your day-to-day work, if you will. You kind of bring all that together, and then also integration with the Office apps, right? And that's what makes Copilot. One of the things I love about Copilot, and I don't want to kind of bleed into the next couple slides, but it's sort of going to because it's hard not to with this kind of graphic, but everything you do within your environment, whether you're using the free chat version or the paid license, is self-contained within your tenant, meaning any documents you're supplying to Copilot, anything that you're doing in that chat, it's Microsoft isn't using that stuff to train, right, the models. Again, I can promise you all the other free ones, your free version of ChatGPT, your free Claudes, they're 100% going to use anything you're putting in there, uh, and training their models with it. So I really advise that if you are going down the route of not, wanting to pay for an LLM per se, don't use the free version of ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or any of that fun stuff. Use Microsoft Copilot because all of your stuff will be safe, secure in your tenant. Go to the next slide, Sat. Thanks. So, like I said, right, it's grounded in your company data. Again, it's isolated in your tenant. You don't have to worry about those things. You have the graph, and again, this is coming from someone who uses all the different AIs every day. A lot of that they don't understand the context of the kind of the totality of what you do every day, right? If I'm using a Chat GPT or I am using Claude, I'm always supplying it with stuff. Yes, it has a memory. So does Copilot, right? But it doesn't understand necessarily this customer across all of my data sources, right? Unless I'm doing all these integrations. But even then, right, it's different because of the Microsoft Graph, which brings all of these components together automatically. A lot of the times, what you'll have to do is kind of make these connections happen. Versus in Copilot, it's just there from day one. It understands. Again, the graph is not new; it's been around for years, and that's kind of the piece of it. But again, also having that protection within your environment. And again, if you're doing things like labeling, right, using Purview and whatnot, what's great about that is, there's different customers have different policies around things. A great example is law firms, right? Some of the law firms we work with, they say, you know what, we have a company policy that says you cannot use AI with customer data, and others say no, you can. But for those where they say, you can't, you could essentially be, using a purview label on all of the company information so that when you go to use Copilot, it's excluding that right from it. So you can go and safely use Copilot all while still staying within company guidelines, right, and policies of how to use AI within there. So again, it's kind of a win-win all the way around. So this is kind of, again, what I was, like I said, some of what I talk will bleed into some of the other slides, but again, this is, Microsoft takes a very security and privacy focus first, with using Copilot. Again, not saying the others don't, but I would say it's I don't want to say it's an afterthought, but working on the LLM with some of the other ones are kind of the focus, and then privacy comes later, or security. Microsoft's kind of flipped that, where that is the focus, that is the main point. Then we'll get to the LLM piece because we want you using it in a safe way within there. And here's kind of all the components. We're going to talk about some of these today, right? Of some of the different pieces of it, right? Of using perhaps Azure and whatnot in there to kind of understand that, the stack of it. But essentially, we have, again, grounded in your data, right? You can have plugins to other things within there. Prompting, again, this is like a hill I'll die on, is that prompting is everything. I don't care what AI you're doing or what you're doing with AI. This this kind of traverses even in customization. So if you're building agents or whatnot, kind of the prompting or the idea of what you want this to do is everything. Prompting is everything. It's the new skill, is what I like to say. Like, I remember years ago, and I mean, I literally saw this where people would put like they could Google on their resume, right? Like that was like a skill. Now just we all take it for granted because we're used to doing it for so many years. It's not even, it's an afterthought, right? Of finding something on your first shot in Bing or Google. But again, years ago that was not a thing. You would be cycling pages and pages because you weren't using the keywords. Well, now we kind of have to reverse that, go away from keywords and go into more, proper prompt, right, structure of that. And that's, again, the difference between what we call a one shot and getting everything you want AI to do for you, or having to constantly go back over and over and over in it. Again, like I said, with the agent piece, which we'll talk a little bit later, is that is the difference between an agent working and not working, is kind of having that prompting kind of instructions accurately laid out.
Good stuff. Thanks, Mike. Very informational and eye-opening on how things work under the hood. So it's kind of good to see the Microsoft approach of keeping it all secure and security purview labeling, things like that. I mean, that's something we'll touch a little bit more towards the end, but how to securely roll out AI, that's a whole different conversation, right? So it's here to help you, but there are some guardrails to be defined, some security controls to be put in place that we certainly want our clients to kind of be mindful of as they roll this out. So with that, let's talk about Teams and Copilot and what this looks like. So if you aren't using Copilot already with Teams, this is going to be something good for you to know. If you are using it, hopefully it is helping you the way you're expecting. So the first one here is to do a summarization of your chat messages, right? So chat, email, meetings. So we have this Copilot plugin, which is part of your Microsoft Teams client now. You can give it a prompt or ask it to prepare you for the next meeting. It'll again look through the Microsoft Graph, find all the appropriate documents. Maybe it's a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document in this case, or even apps. Now we have connectors where you can have Copilot look into some of your other business applications that you use for your day to day, and it can go query all these different areas, get you that consolidated output to give you the relevant information to make you more productive for this meeting, right? So, very, very handy. I mean, Mike and I use it pretty much every day. I don't even know how we would function anymore without Copilot type agent tooling. Very quickly ask a question, scan through emails, chat, calendar, and it gives you information right in that one interface, which is huge. The next one here is also in more of like a channel, or I'm sure we are part of different channels in our Teams environment. So, for example, us as a consulting company, we have lots of clients. Every client has pretty much a team created for them, and each team there is several different channels for different projects that we are doing for the clients. There's a lot of chatter going on in those channels, whether that's a project updates, weekly status call, things like that. All the updates are in there. It's almost impossible to keep up with all these channel messages, right? So if I have to get on a call with a client, for example, I can jump into the Teams, ask Copilot to summarize all the latest conversations for them, and then I'm pretty much caught up on what is happening with them, and I can have educated, up to speed conversation with the client. Makes me look smart. I'm on top of everything with the client, and again, it is that impactful output that I leverage as a consultant when I'm talking to the client. So uh, make sure you don't miss anything with a quick summarization. Now we are gonna switch gears and talk about some calling, right? So Teams, Microsoft Teams can be your corporate phone systems. You can port your numbers into it. In this screenshot over here, you can see the dial pad. Once all the licenses are in place and the voice calling capabilities activated, your phone numbers will be listed here. All your call history, incoming, outgoing, voicemails, everything is in here centralized. Microsoft's phone system is SLA backed now, so there is a 99.99% financially backed SLA. The nice thing about here is that we can query mid call, right? So not just chat, now it's able to actually also plug into your voice calling and then catch you up to speed if you got distracted or you had something else to take care of. You had to hop off the call to take another call maybe and then jump back on. It can ask and give you all the details for you. And here is an example, right? So you can ask Copilot quickly summarize the conversation, and then it will tell you exactly what is being discussed, what are the key topics. You can ask if there is any disagreements or any follow-up action item, or anywhere where my name was mentioned, right? So that's more of a Teams meeting type situation, but you can do reasoning mid-call, which is huge. And it is also supported not only on the Teams to Teams call, but also on PSTN calls. So if you are making external calls to an outside party on their phone numbers or receiving that call, you can do the reasoning on that as well. Really good um, for reasoning purposes, and gives you that insight maybe after the call, right? The call transfer is another feature that is very important for companies who are doing a lot of call delegations, right? So think of a scenario where you have an executive assistant, you have a lawyer or manager or director. The executive assistants take the call, whoever calls in, he or she talks to the caller, get the detail on the matter that they're contacting about, and now you have to transfer the call to your supervisor or lawyer, boss, whoever you are delegate of. Instead of doing a consult transfer, putting the original call on hold for 5 minutes, bringing the manager up to speed, and also there is always a chance you're going to forget something to relay, right? So now with this console transfer option, Copilot can generate a text summary that gets sent to the destination where you are transferring the call, giving them a full context of what the original caller is calling about, so they're up to speed, right? You still have that opportunity to talk to the manager before connecting the call, but this way you'll have the full summary of it. There'll be no chance of missing anything or information drop, things like that. So really, really huge capability, and it supports both VoIP and PSTN calling, which is also great. Copilot in meetings is another big thing here. So we it happens to us all the time, right? Like we used to take a lot of meeting notes on the side. We are constantly kind of task switching, not paying attention 100% on what's being spoken because I'm taking notes. So now with Copilot in meeting, you have the intelligent recap. And the benefit of the recap is it can also do by name, right? Like who's speaking in the meeting, what were the follow-up action item, next steps, or if there is any questions, outstanding questions. I can go reason everything. I can go question, hey, what were the key topics discussed, where my name was mentioned, creating like a table format, which is what this example is doing. And then you can go put that into your meeting recap or follow-up items and things like that. So really, really helpful for meetings. You don't have to be distracted and taking notes simultaneously. Copilot does it all for you. And there is more coming up in the next slide, which Mike is going to talk about the facilitator agent.
Yes, thanks, Pat. Yeah, so I'm sure you probably, if you haven't heard, all of the LLMs are saying 2026 is the year of the agent. Copilot's no different. So there is this facilitator agent, and again, it's not new, but I will say that lots of customers, when we talked to them, didn't realize it was there. It's been around for, and I could be wrong exactly on the date, but I think it was first released in kind of like a preview in July or August, right? And then it was one of those things you had to kind of go and activate in your tenant that you were going to allow to use it. But now it's there, right? And what this does, and again, it's super helpful in my opinion, is again, first it will help if you have an agenda, because what will happen is you will kind of see this slider bar as you see right there, the kind of the purple, where it's going through that agenda, right? So if it's a 30-minute meeting or a 60-minute meeting, right, it kind of has this bar at the top, and it will start. Obviously, it's paying attention to what's being discussed, and as you're going through your agenda, it's going to kind of check those things off as you've talked about them, and then as you're getting towards the end of it, it's going to tell you like, hey, there's 15 minutes left, and there's still three things we need to discuss. So you kind of get all these notes, and that's what you're seeing. Kind of, it's a little cut off, but on the right there, right where the agent is coming back during the meeting and telling you like, hey, we've got 15 minutes, we still got to talk about this stuff. And whatnot. So it's great, but also what's amazing about it is kind of the after, right? So after you're done, it essentially will kick everything over to a loop page. Again, if you're not using Loop, definitely look into it. Don't want to turn this into a Loop, rah party. But again, it's a great product. You should look into it, and it will help with what are the tasks that need to come out of this. What's happening? Here's the notes, all that fun stuff. So almost like from a project management or however you want to look at that, like a calling perspective, that you'll have kind of all of those notes. And kind of to jump off what Sat was saying is, once we started using this, like I'm present at the meetings now, right? Because before I was kind of just really, I'm like sort of listening, but I'm also typing notes, right? And if you or a customer will be like, this and then this and then this, like I'm still on the first one, right? And I'm typing and I'm getting notes and I might miss the second, ask them to repeat that. This is very different. Now I'm there. We can respond. I can respond. We can have more conversations. We can go back to something all while being present, as I like to say, at the meeting versus one ear in the meeting, the other is kind of typing your note out. So it's really great to kind of bring that all in there. Interpreter agent. So this is also came around the same time as facilitator. It was over the summer. I think there's been some updates to it for additional languages. But again, it's real time, right? I'm sure you've seen Google has a similar one. Obviously, I think ChatGPT has one too. No different here in Teams, right? To where basically you can have different languages going on, or you're attending a meeting in a language it's not your native language. You can swap that to the language, and it's real time, right? Translation, so that you can understand what's going on, and again, vice versa, they can do the same if it's not their native language. We find this very helpful. I've been part of many meetings where this is taken place, and it's very smooth, right? Between kind of those transitions.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I love those facilitator and interpreter. Definitely a game changer on how we do meetings these days. Let's talk about Copilot in places. So there was a lot to talk about Copilot in Teams, and those were not all the use cases. There is tons of more, right? Like if we go through all the use cases, we'll be here for a very long time. We just wanted to give a quick preview of some of the key features that are available that is creating the most impact. Also, I wanted to take an opportunity to introduce Copilot in Places. So Places, like I said, has been out for over a year now. There is a bunch of clients already using it. What it is, it's essentially a hybrid workplace coordinator, facilitator, right? The way this works is, employees are now able to create what's called a work plan. So you can pick and choose a day on your calendar where this example, right, this day is set as remote. I can choose it to be remote, in office, things like that. And what that does is like all my peers or my coworkers now are able to see my work plan, and they can create meetings, schedule meetings to be either remote based on where majority of the people are, or make it an in-person meeting. And then when you get a meeting invite, you now also have an option to not just accept or decline. You can accept virtually or accept in person, right? So it's really, really fueling that whole notion of expanding and enhancing collaboration, making those educated meeting by looking at your work plan in the environment. And Copilot plays a big role into it too. So there is different tiers of Microsoft Places. We're not going to go into licensing in this webinar, but there is Places Core, Places Premium, and Places Copilot, which is like the ultimate Places layer that gives you all the intelligent suggestion for the places. There is some pre-work to be done to effectively use Places, which includes, uploading the floor plan, sectioning your cubicles, your conference rooms, your open seating spaces. It also has a section where you can do a desk reservation, and it can do like auto release, things like that. So if you book a meeting, nobody shows up at the meeting time, it waits for 5 minutes. If the meeting isn't started, it will auto release their assets, right? So making the whole workplace resources more effective. But the thing here in this example is if I'm in the office, I'm looking for a conference room with the people on my invite list, it can now detect and make suggestions like 4 people out of 5 are in office. They all sit in this building, in this area. Oh, by the way, there is a conference room available near to these 4 people, right? So it's going to detect how many people. And by volume, it will suggest the closest room to the most people for convenience, instead of making just picking up a random room, right? So it's making those intelligent decisions now for you. There is also a component called Room Recommender. This is essentially what I just talked about, right? So you put the audience in it, it'll look at their work plan, it'll recommend a room. Also, not just by location proximity, but also by size, right? So if you are a 5 people meeting you're organizing, and there is a 20-person room available, versus a 10, it's gonna suggest you 10, right? Because you don't want to be wasting resources. Like I said, there is also a desk booking component in the places where you can, if you're not a frequent, if you don't have an assigned desk, for example, at your workplace, you can go and book a desk for the days you come into the office. You can even create a recurring schedule for desk reservation. And if those desks are not occupied at the reserved date and time for a certain duration, it can auto release it so that somebody else can use it, right? We don't want to be booking a desk, not show up, and then be that desk sitting open for the whole day if somebody else can use it. So really, really intelligent and efficient component in here. So now also wanted to add a little bit about the in-person meeting. So we talked about virtual meetings and how Copilot takes the notes, follow-up items, things like that. As we are, a lot of companies are bringing employees back into the office. The RTO, return to office term. I'm sure you all have heard about it. It's happening, right? So people are also making sure their conference room technologies that was deployed however long ago is hybrid friendly now. There are tools, there is cameras, there is sound bars now that are becoming more and more intelligent with the overlay of Copilot AI. So even if you are in a conference room with 5 people, with the voice and face enrollment, it can detect who is talking from the conference room, right? No longer the transcript will just say conference room A said XYZ. Now it can put context to it that Mike from conference A said XYZ, right? So it's got more of a contextual awareness in transcription with Copilot Intelligence Recap. This is a screenshot of the places inside. So when people, you know, executives ask, how is my utilization? How is my conference room being used? How many meetings do they host? My open desk area, are people actually booking it? Most of the time there is the missing data, right? Like we don't have a good value or information to provide with the places, with the desk reservation, auto release, the floor plan, the work plan, all of it combined. Now we have a very, very robust reporting that we can section however you want, really. In this screenshot, we have the overall building utilization on how that's looking. We have focused into the room utilization specific to conference room technologies, and we can do trending, right? Last month compared to this month or quarters, things like that. And then we have desk pool utilization, which is that open desk reservation for people who are not assigned with the desk, right? Like what is that looking like? So Copilot helps fuel all these things behind the scenes. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Mike to talk a little bit about agentic AI, what it is, and why it is important.
Perfect. Like I said, you're the agents, right? So we're gonna kind of break some of this apart just so everybody kind of gets where this is going for sure. Again, what's the difference between Copilot and agent? Again, Copilot, human interaction. I mean, technically, you could also have an agent, right, where you're invoking that agent to go do said thing. Um, Copilot's your personal assistant, right? You're asking it things. Again, think of it someone sitting right next to you and you're turning to them and saying, hey, can you do X, Y, and Z this way? And they go and do X, Y, and Z this way. So again, there's so many, each person has Copilot, right? That's it. Agents, on the other hand, there could be more agents than people. It can run autonomously, or like I said, it can, you invoke it and say, hey, do this said thing, and it goes, it does a multi-step process, right? So that's kind of the agents that we're talking about today. A lot of different ways. And again, some of the examples I'm going to give, it's just an example. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of others examples out there, or industries, but these are just the ones I just picked for today, right? But understand that there's, I don't want to say it's limitless, but it's getting, it's getting pretty unlimited in the things that you can do. So here's kind of how Copilot looks at it, right? When we're talking about building an agent, I talked a little bit about this earlier when I talked about prompting. Getting it the knowledge, right? You want to ground it in something, right? Whether it's documents, whether you're connecting to a database, whether it's Salesforce, whatever, right? That's the knowledge of it that you're going to give it. One of the reasons we like grounding things in knowledge is it will basically make AI less susceptible to hallucinations, right? If it has this broad kind of memory of things to go off of, it's obviously always trying to answer things as fast as possible. So it's kind of going through all those things, and sometimes it will come back with things that aren't real, right? Or hallucination, as we like to say. But once you ground it in certain set of memory, or documents or knowledge, it's less likely to do that. Then we have skills, right, to where it can trigger something if something is said, which we'll get it in a second when we talk about a use case, or something is done a certain way. It can open a ticket. It can suggest something else. It can open up an email getting ready to send to somebody, right? Like those types of things. You can have different things triggered to do different workflows or different things. And then again, you can have it, autonomy running kind of to make it its own decision. A great example would be you can tell it to answer an email a certain way, or you could just say, answer it like you answer it. You're AI, right? You have that kind of capability in there depending on what you want to do around that. And a great example of that would be, let's pretend that you're having an agent kind of monitor a mailbox, right? And maybe a lot of different information comes in and out. You can give the autonomy to it and say, answer it any, kind of like in a professional manner, right? Again, this goes back to the prompting. You want to give it its rule set. You want to give it all the things it should and shouldn't do, a professional manner, et cetera, et cetera. However, you could also force it to do something on a certain one, meaning anytime someone emails in and they're asking about pricing, make sure you always have this price sheet attached when you reply, right? As an example. So there's kind of a mix of where you can tell it to do something a certain way, but also allow it to freely kind of answer that email for you. And then again, there's different models. If we're talking again, we're going to get into it in a couple slides, but again, Copilot Studio is going to give you the ability as of today to use some of the OpenAI ChatGPT models and or Claude, Anthropic, if you again have that enabled. More are coming in the future. And then again, we'll talk about Foundry in a second. That's kind of unlimited at the moment of what you can do. So here we are. Here's kind of the flavors, I would like to say, of agents, right? And they go from simple to complex. And let's kind of start with the SharePoint agent. You can basically grab 2 documents, or you can grab a library or a site, or 3 documents and a library, right? You kind of get the idea of that. And then you say, basically, you're an agent now. And again, really low hanging fruit. Kind of the example I always like to use around this, because it's a real use case, is we had where to go through resumes, right, was like a 2.5-day process. And what we were seeing in that is, again, because it was manual, right, we had to look. And what we found is that a lot of the folks that would fill out a resume or, apply for a job didn't even have those skills. Example, we need an Exchange admin, right? We would get a lion's share of the folks that didn't even have Exchange experience. I guess they just thought, I'll apply, you never know. So kind of the fix here was, we created an agent, gave it all sorts of rule sets, right? Like you have to, be unbiased. You have to pick 4 candidates. You have to write all sorts of rules were put into this. Again, back to why the prompting is important. Gave it its kind of knowledge of what it has to do, how it's got to act, all that fun stuff, and pointed at a repository. And then what happens now is you can just dump in resumes, ask it a couple questions, and you got your candidates, right? So we saw this as what was a 2.5-day process approximately to go through all these resumes, figure out, okay, these are the ones that actually have the experience. Now let me go through those and figure out who the best candidate is, to just asking AI. It took it from a 2.5-day process to 60 seconds. So that's kind of the power of the agent. And again, that was done with the SharePoint agent, very low hanging fruit. Then we go to the next one, which is Agent Builder, or as I like to say, Chat Agent, because you build it in chat in Copilot. And this does everything the SharePoint agent does, but now I have the ability to actually get some external links on there, right? Maybe there's a government website you want to kind of pull from or have it use as reference for what you're asking it, or some pricing sheet of a vendor that they have out on their public facing website. You want to kind of reference that as use that as your, the agent answers questions. You can do that here, right? You can have that piece in there. So not only looking at documents you've grounded it in, but give it some URLs to say also use this when you're answering said question. That's kind of agent builder. Then we go to Copilot Studio, which does all the stuff that we just talked about with agent builder and SharePoint agent. But now I can begin connecting to external systems, right? Your Salesforce, I can connect to, I mean, it's pretty much unlimited, right? Some connectors are already available by the vendor, like Salesforce has one ready to go. A lot of vendors do too. Or you can do your own, right? To where you're getting that connected in and writing your own connector into these systems within there. Also brings in some of the capabilities that we talked about before with skills, where you can have it, if this is answered, maybe you, or asked, then maybe you go log a ticket or whatnot, right? So now it's getting a little bit more complex with what it can do. Then we move to Foundry, which is pretty much unlimited in what you want to do. I would kind of look at this as average user can do SharePoint agent and agent builder. I would say more of your pro users, or kind of look at that like your power users would use Copilot Studio. And then Azure Foundry is more, in my opinion, more of a development kind of environment, but you have access to 11,000 different models right within there. It's not just Copilot, it's OpenAI, it's XAI, right? You have Grok in there, you can use Claude, I mean some open source ones. I mean, it's kind of unlimited, but also you have lots of what I would consider like templatized things, which we're going to talk about in a second. Bringing in some of these things so that you're not necessarily training these models on your own. Like if you were to go with, like an OpenAI or something like that, you're going to use kind of the base level, but then you're going to have to do some training on that yourself to make it how you want it. Microsoft has a great set of templates to where you can start with these and then tweak them slightly. And the dev time is cut in, I mean, it's beyond half when you're using these things. So to kind of get an MVP or quick prototype out the door with Azure Foundry is very quick. Microsoft has a lot of great tools in there to kind of have you do that. That's just what I said before, right? Kind of what I would say, just your end users, right? Agent builder or chat builder, as I like to say. And then SharePoint agents, again, for your makers, your power users, Copilot Studio. Developers, again, depending on complexity, you could get pretty deep in Copilot Studio too. But I think there's kind of two levels in Copilot Studio. There's some surface level things, but once you start getting into more skilling of it, workflows, those types of things, I think then you're kind of teetering into the developer environment. And then again, Azure Foundry, in my opinion, is pretty much 100% for devs at that point in time. So let's talk about a use case. Everybody loves a use case, right? We talked about use cases, right? Sat talked about a lot of different things that we can do different ways, but this is I would consider custom, right? What are we talking here? This is like your AI service desk agent, right? Today, right? Without this, what happens, right? You have a couple things. You can either have live, right? Folks answering phones, right? Humans answering phones, answering the same thing day in and day out, over and over and over. Or you have, an IVR solution, right? That's going to kind of look at some more, workflow type of things on that. But if it kind of deviates from that, it might not handle it well. Well, again, now we're talking AI, right? So AI can, on top of this, can really kind of change how things work. So basically, let's again assume we're using Teams, right? And we have phone calls going on. People are coming in. Let's again service desk here. If you could kind of think of before this, maybe they're pressing 1 for order status or whatever, but now the person can just say what they want, right? Where's my order? When will this ship? Those types of things, right? So they can get that information just by talking to it. I don't have to press 1. I don't have to, or how many times have you said like you had to say a word like order status, like you're yelling like at, into your phone. None of that. You just speak like normal. And it's going to do those things, right? And kind of looking at how this could essentially play out. And again, this is one idea. This is one way of doing it. There are dozens ways of doing this exact same thing right within here, and different systems. Again, I have ERP system with Epicor. It could be whatever, right? It could be Salesforce. Those things are all Doesn't matter, right? Those things don't matter in this. This is just a high level idea, again, that can be done. But the idea here is that, right, someone calls in, perhaps, there's a message that says, hey, this is an automated service. How can I help you today? Right. And again, maybe they say, what's my order status? Right. And within there, it's going to go ahead and it's going to look at that stuff up, right? It's going to go look into the system. It's going to say, oh, here it is. And it can come back and regurgitate. Oh, its status is shipped or about to be shipped or whatever that said thing is. And then you're done. But again, once you're layering on AI, you could do a couple little different things on there, right? You can almost do some sentiment analysis on that and say, detect, is this person angry, right? And within there, maybe that then escalates to a real human, right? Like, oh, this person's kind of yelling, or they're very upset that their order is delayed, or whatever, right? And then you could have that flip back over to there. But again, a lot of things can happen, different kind of what I would say workflows within here, to where you can, again, if something is going wrong, it could kick it over to a human. It could go back to Salesforce or Dynamics and, put a note in there and say, a customer is very upset that it's it hasn't left the warehouse or whatever yet. All of these types of things can happen. And again, what this is going to help with is it's really going to make kind of your phone folks answer the things that matter, right? Versus literally getting on to answer the same question every day about something that's very mundane. Now it can, they're there, instead of answering that same thing 15 times every day, or every hour or whatever it is, to now when a customer's upset, then they can engage, right? Then they're there. There's the human ready to hand over, ready to take over, and then answer that question right there and make them feel safe and happy and all that fun stuff. So this is just kind of an idea of what can absolutely be done, customization, kind of using an agent, right? Of traversing through this. Like I said, this could be done a lot of different ways. This is just one example of how it could be used with certain set of systems. But again, as you see here, it could create tickets and all that fun stuff depending on what the outcome is. And again, this is just what we've worked with customers, heard that there's lots of wasted time on asking things that could potentially just be on a website, or it's super simple that could just be like, well, it's shipped already, right, via UPS. So these things can kind of automate those for you, but again, in a way where I'm not yelling in my phone asking for the order status.
Excellent. Love that use case. So we have a little bit of a real world story from Microsoft. Mike, do you want to take this one? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, I would say this is definitely in line with a lot of stuff that we're seeing, right, with HR assistants, policy assistants, kind of however you want to look at that stuff, right? Even a service desk, right? If it wasn't necessarily call related, but kind of asking those things within there is almost again, this says 25% from Microsoft reduction of service tickets. We've seen like 30%, and again, everybody's different, right? Might be 40 for some, might be 20 or 15 for others, but that's kind of the average that we're seeing here, right? But lots of times we have, especially with HR, right, as the example, where very much like the call center, right, there is the same question being asked over and over and over again, and that's always going to take someone time out of their day to answer that said thing, right? When a lot of that could just be looked at. And again, let's kind of go back to SharePoint, right? And again, today without AI, a lot of that's it's just looking up stuff, right? I have to go to the HR site. I have to go find the policy document. I have to go and open it up. I have to go and read, and maybe it's 20 pages long, and I have to kind of cycle through that thing and figure out where this part is that I need to ask, right, around this. And this is where AI can come in, and again, it eliminates so much, not just of the HR person's time, right, of having to answer that, whether that's a phone call, an email they got to respond to, an IM, right? All of this stuff is kind of gone. And then from the other side of the spectrum, which again, that's why I'm saying like a lot of these things, I would argue are even a little bit higher, right? Is that now me as a user, I can just ask AI, right? I can just ask Copilot, what is the policy on, or what is, this thing. And again, we could be integrated into SharePoint. We could be integrated into our HR system and all that fun stuff, right? And be able to extract that stuff and put it right into the chat, right there. So me as end user, I'm not searching, I'm not scrolling, I'm not looking through all these documents to try and figure out which one is going to have the answer for me. So that's one side of the coin. The other side would be from the actual HR person who would constantly be answering these questions day in, day out. Oh, I can't find it, so now I got to go maybe open a ticket, or I got to whatever, right? However that type of thing is set up. But these are some of the numbers that we're seeing, right, with this stuff. And what I believe this is really doing to a lot of companies is really having some self-reflection on what are their processes today, right? And looking at those things. And now it's more of a process conversation, right? And that's what I'm seeing, right? First it was an AI conversation. Now it's like, how do we change the way that we're doing these things? Or what are things that we're looking at that take such a long time? Or this person has to answer that 15 times. So we went and put it on a SharePoint site. And now no one even knows it's there. No one went and checked it. These are where these agents are coming in and are helping greatly reduce those times for, again, both sides of the coin, from the user, and then again, in this instance or in this example, with HR, right, to where they have to answer those things.
Yeah, such a cool story. I mean, and the big thing is like 21,000 hours of productivity gain. I mean, that's massive. I mean, some of those mundane tasks certainly can be automated, right? Like I overhear Microsoft, they were able to reallocate 13 full-time employees to high priority tasks. I mean, every organization has something important to be done, where they can like shift the manpower to it. So, uh, yeah, lots of savings, lots of ideas. Like to Mike's point, is becoming more of like how people work, like how businesses function, how are their processes, identifying inefficiencies, repeatable tasks, and just really automate it, not only for the sake of company's benefit, but also for the sake of external people who are interacting with those systems, right? So thanks, Mike, for sharing that story. Really cool. Um, so just to kind of close this webinar out, wanted to call out a couple of things, how Netrix is helping clients. So this is some of the bullet points here for you to take away. We are engaging clients in a strategic and advisory capacity. So if you are somebody who's looking to introduce AI into your environment, we can help with the strategic alignment of how AI should be introduced in a governed, controlled manner, with those underlying security and information protection, DLP, what have you, in place, right? So we are not accidentally exposing information that we shouldn't be. We can overlay that with AI in general, in alignment with digital workplace, have roadmap type conversations with you. Um, with Teams enablement as well. So Copilot in chat, Copilot in meeting, in phone, in places, right? Like if you want to explore that avenue, we can help you properly deploy it, do a pilot rollout, understand really how it works, and then do a mass rollout with a appropriate amount of user adoption trainings. Agentic AI solution, Mike shared an example of that. Customer service. So we are able to work with clients to identify those cumbersome processes that client may have, where we can leverage AI, agentic AI, to introduce efficiencies, right? Whether it's your IT processes, HR operations, service desk, what have you, right? Like anything that client may feel like is not optimized, we can look at it and provide a guidance on it. Voice contact experience, going back to Teams phone. So if you are not using Teams as your corporate phone system, it can be your tool. And then this is where we are working with a lot of clients where they're also doing tooling consolidations, right? So you may have a legacy phone system, you may have third-party cloud. Now Teams can become your phone, plus it can add all this uh, intelligence on top of it, right? So it only makes more sense to make Teams your corporate phone system, as well as some of the contact center capability into it. Meeting spaces modernization. like I mentioned earlier, as companies are bringing employees back into the office, if you have a conference room, that is not optimized for a hybrid type workflow, we can help with that. We can look at your existing investment, reuse what we can, redesign what we need to make sure it is a best room in terms of not only in room as well as hybrid people, making it impactful for both of them. So everybody's heard and listened. At the end, we have run and optimize. So even if you're looking for somebody to have a 24/7 support coverage on these technologies that we just talked about, we do have our managed services offering around all of these areas that we are helping clients with. So if anything we discussed today, relates to you or something that's been on your roadmap, but we just don't know when to what to trigger, how to get conversations started, we are here to help. So please reach out to us. We'd be more than happy. Mike and our team is this is what we do for all of our clients. So please reach out to us. With that, we're gonna just end this webinar. We have an email address here to contact. You can use any of the um, marketing handle, webinar, LinkedIn, email, all kinds of avenues available for you to contact us. So please reach out to us, and we are here to help. With that, Mike, thanks again for all the input. It was excellent, and then we will see you all on the next one.
Have a good one.
Thanks.